her creative projects as best she could, and being the grounded center of our family. She taught me how to be in charge without being loud, and the importance of being real. I always remember this odd memory of hers of being on an escalator in a department store in Oklahoma with a Muzak version of the Godfather theme song playing, wondering what her life was. She went out of her way to give us a normal childhood. When we moved to be on location for my dad's films, she would pack up all my stuff, my comforter and hamsters and habit trails, to make sure I had my whole room there so it didn't feel like we were temporarily living somewhere else, that this was our life. I think the thing she cared most about was being genuine. When she was filming me during the making of my first film, The Virgin Suicides, I was having a hard day and was upset, and she kept filming me when I didn't want to be filmed. She felt it was important to see all the real sides of making something. In that moment, that was more important to her than being a mother to me. It irritated me at the time, but I admire it about her now. Even at the time of her illness, when I was with her in Napa and had to go talk in front of an audience after a screening, I said, "What if someone asked me about you? What if I cry?" She said, "That's okay, that would be real." Recently, she and I found 100 hours of video that she had shot on the set when I was filming Marie Antoinette. She relished and zeroed in on the making of the elaborate costumes, the flowers, and the 18th century sculptural jellied food. She loved seeing the process, and I think she delighted in seeing her daughter in charge of this big crew. Her last wish was to see that footage put together and to have this book published. She struggled with how to be an artist and a mother, and the unexpected role of the wife of such a celebrated film director. She made sculpture, films, conceptual art, photographs, dance, costumes, and she was always writing. She wrote this book over the past decade and spent her last year finishing it as she looked back on her life. She was graceful and strong and taught us how to look at the world with curiosity and an appreciation for nature, art, and beauty, and all the touching, strange details along the way.
That introduction was so striking to me when about it, and the detail about you being on location, bringing your pets and their habit trails, is that you weren't just on location with your father and your family when you were working on his films. When he was working on his films, you were actually on set so much of the time. And I'm wondering how that influenced you and how that helped you develop your passions as a filmmaker, like being on set.
Yeah, I felt so lucky. It was incredible. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was always fun to go on set. I loved to go to set, and we would always go on location. So I remember grades by where we lived. I went to 5th grade in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I went to 7th grade in New York, and I always remember by what movie it was. It was like Cotton Club was 7th grade, or that's how I could tell where we lived. And I was always the new kid at school, and my parents just put me in the local school. So I had to be the new kid, and I don't know how to multiply because I left one school and they were about to learn and another school they had just learned it. So and no one noticed that. Math was miserable for me, but but I loved going on set, and I would just spend all my time on set because there was so much going on. And I even remember in the Philippines during Apocalypse Now, I was like 4 and 5, and I remember the costume department would make little army uniforms for my teddy bears, and we would get to visit all the departments, and my brother Roman spent a lot of time in special effects makeup, and he could make the best wounds and bruises, and he always had gallons of blood in his room, and so we definitely, we got to be around the film set, and I feel so lucky that when I made a short film, I was so surprised because in my 20s I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had so many different interests. I was frustrated because I couldn't pick one thing, and then I made a short film, and I was so surprised that I knew how to do it.
This was Lick the Star?
Lick the Star, my short film, and about my 7th grade experience. And I was so surprised that I just knew how to do it naturally, and I've been learning. I got my 10,000 hours on all my dad's sets and just watching, and he was always talking about filmmaking, so luckily I had a great teacher, but I feel like it's, so so valuable to be able to just see how things are made and definitely learn so much from it.
And didn't you work with the same costume designer in some of your films as well?
Milena Canamero, who did the incredible costumes for Marie Antoinette, I had met when I was in 7th grade during the Cotton Club. I think that was the first movie she did with my dad, and she did incredible 30s costumes, and she's a legend. She did Barry Lyndon and Clockwork Orange, I think was her first film, and she did Out of Africa, and I think she also designed the Miami Vice look.
Oh, wow.
She's a legend. But she was someone that I knew, yeah, since I was a little kid, so she's like an aunt to me. My dad worked with a lot of the same people over the years, so they became like, you know, uncles and aunts, and then, yeah, I was so thrilled that I got to have Milena do the costumes for Marie Antoinette and see her work, and she's such a perfectionist and made, you know, hundreds of incredible costumes, but, and Dean Tableras, my dad's production designer, someone that I always got to talk to and learn so much from, and Victoria Storaro, his cinematographer, but I remember as a little kid, he would talk to me about color and like photography, like not like we were little kids. And so I had this very, you know, incredible kind of film family. And my dad had that family atmosphere on set, which I learned from him, and I always try to have. And I work with the same people. And I remember when I was starting out, someone told me like, find your team, like just spend, because I was like trying to figure out how you start your career, and he's like, just spend like the next 10 years finding your team. And that was such great advice to really, because it's so collaborative and you really rely on different people. So I think in any creative endeavor, to find your team is such a good place to start and helps so much.
Great.
You were saying that your mother's wishes, the things that she was really hoping for in the end of her life, were to finish the book and to make the documentary about the making of Marie Antoinette. And not only have you and Rome worked to make that book happen, but the documentary that she was so hoping is happening is something you're working on now. And you brought some of it here to show. I wonder if you would say